All right, so right here, the trade deadline just passed last week.
It's almost been a full week.
Some moves were made, some moves were not made. Some fan bases wish the team made some moves. Some fan bases wish their team made better moves. But all in all, I think trade deadline was a success for every team involved in it. Like, you either got what you wanted or you got rid of something you didn't want. Were you more surprised that more teams didn't make moves? Because I feel like this year, more than any other year, there was a lot of trade chatter like coming into it because it's a lot of young players who don't necessarily fit into certain rotations. It's a lot of veteran players, who don't fit in the rotations anymore. So, did you expect more people to get moved, or was this about normal? Honestly,
it did seem to be a tad bit of pump faking going on, but then this is also goes to show. I guess since we podcast and we talk about the NBA and we follow more NBA stuff on NBA Twitter, you see a lot more of the rumor stuff. Mm-hmm. And it shows, cause I think people definitely discuss deals because sometimes it's just a matter of they couldn't come to terms.
Right.
But then I think it also shows just a matter of how much pump faking going on out there. But I did think a few more teams would try to make some moves because the buyout market is cool, but I don't think it's not gonna be anybody game changing on the buyout market. But I thought the Bulls would try to get some more size. I thought the Hawks might potentially make a move. But some of the teams that I did think should make a move did. Boston made a good move. Of course, Philly and the Nets, which we will probably talk about later, they made their move.
I think Dallas moves was great. What they did.
The Bucks did a good job again. I really like that they got Ibaka because they haven't had Brook all year. And then, of course, they didn't keep DeMarcus Cousins, which they should have kept DeMarcus Cousins, but whatever. But yeah, so it was a lot of moves that was made, but I do think a few more teams possibly could have made moves that did.
All right, and with that being said, I'm John W.
Fresh Hits.
And we are the Hoopers. And I want to start with the Dallas move real quick before we can go to the Brooklyn next.
What was Dallas?
Getting Bertans, Spencer Dinwiddie from Washington for Kristaps.
Yep.
And
that was probably the most surprising move of the day for me.
Did they trade Tim Hardaway somewhere too? I know they were talking about trading Tim Hardaway, but I don't think he got moved. I don't think he got moved. But with this Dallas trade, I feel like Dallas got closer to that team from 3 years ago when they had the number one rated offense in NBA history with Seth Curry, Yogi Ferrell's on that team.
Steven Silas was the assistant.
Yeah, Steven Silas was the assistant coach. And I felt like they tried to do this thing where what they've been trying to do, especially since they traded Seth, was we're going to let Luka run the offense and then we're going to try to put defensive players here and there, and Kristaps is going to be his secondary star. Which they didn't need, which it was kind of, and they kind of struggled with Kristaps. Not that they struggled, but Kristaps was in and out the lineup so much that I don't think they've ever really established any kind of rhythm together. Not even just Luka and Kristaps, but Kristaps and the rest of the team in general. Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway, Dorian Finney-Smith. So I think them bringing in more offensive firepower with Bertans, Spencer Dinwiddie is going to be great off the bench for him, in my opinion. I know you think he's a better bench player than a starter, which he has proven time and time again. But I think Dallas is setting himself up for at least winning one round of the playoffs this year. I think if Dallas get the right matchup in the first round, they'll be they at least get into the second round.
Yeah, Dallas, the move that they made, the way I saw it, it made sense in the end. It just was surprising. Porzingis has clearly been out. First of all, I just want to say I don't think Porzingis is as bad as people try to make him out to be. He's averaging 19 this year.
The team, they just not gelling together.
Yeah, I mean, I get it because people look at his contract because I've seen that he's on the worst max contract in the NBA. That's what somebody said. But in the East, he's probably gonna be an all-star in the East if he's healthy. But I don't think he's terrible. But it clearly wasn't working in Dallas, and you got to try to push a button to make it work with Luka. I like getting Dinwiddie because even though Luka is going to be running the offense, having other players that can handle the ball still takes Luka off the ball because Dinwiddie is going to try to get buckets or he's going to try to run the offense too. He's going to play with the ball in his hands. He can play off the ball, but he's going to play with it in his hands too. Shout out to Ball Network. But I agree with you that they're trying to get more guard play, be a little bit more versatile. I still think they need some size because obviously you lose that size. And then you split Luka's contract. You split Porzingis' contract up basically in two players because, of course, he was on the max, but now you get Bertans his deal and then with his deal. So you get two players out of that. And Bertans, if they can find ways to get him open shots, not where he's working too hard, but wide open shots, I think he can kind of get his 3-point shot back. So I think it works for them. But then, people, you got to understand from the Wizards standpoint, why would they want Porzingis? I think in the East, right? For one, obviously you like his size, you like the skill, you like that he's 19-7. I think he can average more rebounds, but you like that he's 19-7, and you don't think of him. Obviously, you don't really think of him as a shot blocker, but he's a problem at the rim. He's 7'4", so he a problem at the rim. You like the shooting to fit around Bradley Beal. I think he's out for the rest of the year, but just thinking future-wise, to be around Bradley Beal. 19-7 as a front court player in the East is probably an all-star, honestly. So I don't know what the Wizards are really thinking, honestly. I'm just trying to, give them some credit for why you would want Porzingis. I don't know what they're really thinking because you still got young fours and Hachimura and Denny. But maybe Porzingis is going to play some center for them. Then you got Gafford. I don't know what they're thinking. I just think they're thinking put some type of potential star power around Brad, and then you build the rest of the roster with those two, plus Kuz in mind.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess Kuz, Brad, Porzingis, you at least know that they could. That's offense, right? Yeah.
And I guess my last thought on this, the only thing I'm thinking about with them, maybe they get addressed in the offseason or the draft, but they don't have a point guard. They don't have a viable starting point guard. I don't know who that starting point. I don't know who that.
That's why I miss all the young players. Like I don't got no analytical idea of what they're doing. I just think I just think they looking at Brad. They're looking at Porzingis. That I know that they really like Kuz and think, all right, well, we at least have a player that's been a consistent all-star and a player that's made an all-star game. Mm-hmm. That has a ton of skills, and yeah, he's on the big deal. But the deal he should be coming on the last 2 years or so. So maybe when that contract's expired, it looks better. So knowing where he's at
in Dallas. So this should have been the third year on his contract. So this next year should be the last year on it.
Yeah, so he's coming up on the end of the deal. So expiring contracts always look good.
No, for sure. And like I said,
Bertans and Dinwiddie contracts were more fresh. So if you're already losing and you want to get off that, why not get one that's about to expire? So
no, there you go. I like to say, I think the Wizards. I don't know what the Wizards doing. Like you said, I'm not one of those guys who go into all super detail about teams' movements because I don't know. I don't have any insider information.
Nah, you just look at what they're doing. You just got to kind of think. Everyone just says what they should have did. You just got to think why did they do this?
Right, and like so I just think it is setting up to in the East. We see if you can have a healthy team and at least one certified all-star and one person who's on the fringe of being an all-star, you can make the playoffs in the East like that. Like I say, once they address their point guard situation.
You got a point guard to that team. I'm not dismissing. I'm not saying they win the championship.
I'm not dismissing.
But I'm not dismissing Brad Porzingis
as a playoff team.
And Kuz as a playoff team, as a play-in team.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, I'm not dismissing it.
But to the Brooklyn Nets real quick.
Everybody wants to hear about
Brooklyn and Philly made, I don't even consider it a blockbuster trade, but they made a
blockbuster.
I guess so.
Because it's multiple time All-Stars. Ben's made 3 All-Stars. James the MVP.
Right.
Yeah, you can call it a blockbuster.
We can call it a blockbuster then. Yeah. Because it's dead like the actual blockbuster. No, but James Harden was traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden and Paul Millsap, were traded to the...
Yeah, people forget. I even forget Paul Millsap was in that trade. They said he said he wanted to trade. They said they're going to trade him. That's the trade, man. People forgot about Paul Millsap.
So James Harden and Paul Millsap go to Philly in exchange for Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 first-round picks, one of them being protected. But I come to realize that those protected picks don't mean that. That just mean they get your pick the next year if it doesn't work out in their favor the year before. So truth is that protect. And Philly and Brooklyn both look to be good over the next 5 to 6 years maybe. By the time that pick, in between those 2 picks. And Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, 2 first-round picks for James Harden and Paul Millsap. And, of course, this is a trade that everybody and their mother said had to be done because you had 2 players. You had players on both those teams who reportedly didn't want to be there. I'm only saying reportedly because I don't know these guys personally. I ain't got no inside information. But they didn't want to be there anymore. And, of course, now everybody's getting into their conspiracy theories bag. Daryl Morey, James Harden, wink, put this together right before Daryl Morey left Houston, and this I was always going to work out. And I think this was a win for both teams, first and foremost. I don't think nobody, I know that's what they're saying, oh, this team got fleeced, that team. Like, nah, this wasn't a fleecing by either team. Both teams got what they wanted. The players got what they wanted. I will say this. I still like everything Philly have. You add in James Harden if he's healthy and his mindset is in the right place. They're ready to go. But I think losing your best shooter is going, like, Tyrese Maxey is going to fill in and sometimes as catch a shooter, but we know Tyrese Maxey is also a point guard and he wants to score off the dribble and just create off the dribble. So I don't know what their offense is going to look like because Kirk Miles is a good shooter, but he's not necessarily a consistent shooter. What's his name? Yang is a good shooter, but he's not a consistent shooter, and apparently his nickname is the minivan. He be spotted up in the corner. I'm guessing that's why. I don't know, but I heard him calling him a minivan on the Sixers broadcast a couple nights ago. You still have Joel Embiid, who looks like he could be the MVP this year. Still a great defensive player. Tobias Harris is still a good third. He's a good third. James Harden, he's your second scoring option, but he's a good third offensive option for you. Tyrese Maxey, he might jump Tobias Harris as far as scoring options goes. Paul Millsap off the bench, I think, is a good pickup. You lose your backup center in Andre Drummond, who was, for all intents and purposes, having a great season off the bench for a center, honestly. Not which one of these teams won the trade, because like I said, I think both teams won the trade, but which one of these teams, one of these teams got better. Which one do you think got better?
I think they both got better. Honestly, they put themselves in position to be where they want to be. I don't think that it was a wink deal with James Harden more, but I think it's been clear that that's who he's wanted to get because, I mean, it was all the reports that he was going to trade Ben for James last year to Houston, but they said that Houston's owner didn't want to make a trade with Daryl. And then it's clearly that's who he's been holding out for the potential of trading for because his deal was up. So maybe he figured he could try to get him from the Nets, I guess, because James also has a relationship with Philly's owner.
Right.
So, maybe that's who he's wanted all along, and that's what he was waiting on. I know a lot of us have been asking him to make a deal. I know I've been thinking he should have made a deal. So, you take that into consideration. It's not surprising if that's who he was holding out for sure. But I think when you think about, I think Brooklyn got significantly better though because Philly losing Steph Curry is going to hurt the most, in my opinion.
Right.
And I probably would have even, because initially I said I wouldn't trade Thibault, but to keep Seth, I probably would have traded Thibault. But that's clearly them kind of choosing Maxey over Seth, I would say. But
it makes sense.
Right. But Brooklyn, you need it. Oh, and I remember earlier in the season, people were saying that they should trade Ben for Kyrie to the Nets, and they said that he wouldn't work there. But it works for James Harden because he can run point. But that's neither here or there. It's just something I remember real quick. But back to answer why I think Brooklyn did get better. They needed shooting because they've been down Joe all year. Like, is Joe gonna play this year? I'm assuming Joe Harris isn't gonna play this year. So to add Seth, who isn't even just a shooter, even that Seth is he's an offensive threat. He can go out the dribble. He can run the offense for you. So you make your offense versatile still at that position, kind of mimicking what Kyrie can do when he's out because he can't play at home right now. But then you add the shooting that you're missing with Joe Harris. That makes him significantly better, and then that can kind of put Pat Mills back in a box because he's been doing a lot recently. Not put him in a box, but he's been been Joe Harris. He's had to be Kyrie when Kyrie's out, when really you're just supposed to be spot up shooter and maybe run the offense occasionally.
Right.
So getting Seth made them significantly better, and it's been clear that they've needed size all year. Nick Claxton has progressed well this year, but he's always hurt. He's hurt right now.
Thin man.
Yeah, and then they're depending on LaMarcus Aldridge, who's a bucket when he's out there, but the man literally retired last year because of heart issues.
He was never a defender like that. Anyway.
But you got him back. But Drummond is, if nothing else, he's a solid rebounder. We was just talking about him a week or two ago when he had a 20 rebound game, which was his fourth 20 rebound game of the year. Only 4 of those in the last 20 years for Philly. So to add that rebounding and the size, and I know Drummond is at a point in his career where he's pick and roll, catch the lobs, and stuff like that. So Brooklyn gets better. Then you add Ben, who he can play point guard for this team. But then, even though he does handle the ball, he also works with Kyrie because Kyrie can still handle the ball as well. And of course, as long as Kevin Durant's healthy, they're competing for a championship. So, I think Philly gets better. Philly is still good, but Brooklyn got better.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But I think Philly got better too because Ben isn't playing. He hasn't played all year. So even though I know they're gonna miss Seth, if James Harden realized that he's probably going to have to ramp it up a little bit more than he did with the net scoring wise, he's going to give you that production scoring wise. He's already averaging more than Seth now anyway, so you still get that 22 and that 10. Mm-hmm. So now it's a matter of, I think people are trying to figure out how does him and Joel Embiid work, because Joel Embiid hasn't really shown a lot of interest in just being a pick and roll center. And some think that that's how James wants to play, just doing pick and rolls. But I think they're going to be able to play off each other. And I think James is going to open Embiid up to doing more pick and rolls and just doing more playing with the point guard in that type of way. But I think James is going to play well off of Joel also.
See, that was what I was finna ask. Like, I'm not necessarily worried about the other way with Joel and James, with Joel playing off James, because it's going to be nice when you just throwing the ball and he's going to eat. But my thing is, how is James Harden going to play off of Joel Embiid with when Joel Embiid has the ball in his hand? Is James Harden going to be, at this point in his career...
He's never going to be a cutter. Like, that's never going to be his thing.
Not that he cut to get dunked.
You just want him to spot up more.
Like, is he going to be willing to do that? Because not even necessarily is he going to be willing to that. Is his offense still going to be what you need it to be? Because that's what he's going to be, I think, for the most part now, especially with Joel Embiid. You feeding him.
Yeah,
like pick and rolls, throwing the ball in the post, high elbow. You feeding Joel, and James Harden, a lot of times, is probably going to be relegated to the weak side on the court. I just wonder if James Harden, is really ready to be relegated to the weak side of the court as a spot shooter, which will still help his playmaking for others if you think about it.
I think James,
they're gonna have to close out hard on him. You have to respect him as a shooter, no homo.
I think he already knows that he's not an MVP candidate no more. Because despite all the stupid stories I've read about the issues him and KD have had this year, he played well off of being able to handle the ball, because he's still gonna kind of have the same thing. Because since Kyrie wasn't there, at the end of the day, KD, you're feeding KD also. He's not ball dominant, so he's already in a sense kind of played with that player, honestly, because Joel will play mid-range a lot. So I think they do more pick and fades than pick and rolls or whatever. But I think he knows that he's not, especially even with the injuries, the hamstring, he knows that he's not MVP level, and Joel is on course to win MVP. So I think he'll be able to adjust. James is a good player. He'll be able to adjust and play off of him. But now it's on Doc. You know what your team is looking like, and they're gonna have to depend on other players to step up. Those role players, you're gonna have to, Danny Green's gonna have to take a step forward with his 3-point shooting. Shake has been out for a while. They're gonna really need Shake to kind of take his game to the next level. They're gonna need him to be that sixth man that they think he could be. But Joel and James, and what's getting lost in all this is they still got Tobias Harris, and I know Tobias is on, his contract or whatever, but he's still 19 a game. I respect Tobias' game. Whether he's a borderline all-star player, like whether he ever goes above that borderline or not, he is a borderline all-star player. He will give you 30 a night if you sleep on him. So playing with James is going to allow him to spot up and get those corner shots that he likes also, and then his occasional auto-dribble dunks that he get in transition and stuff like that. So being able to keep, because, they was talking about maybe they would split both of them up. But James and Tobias make sense. And with the production that they're gonna get from him scoring wise, it's like you still get the assists that Ben provides, but you're gonna get the scoring too. So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So I think Brooklyn got way better though.
No, yeah, like I said, both teams got better, but Brooklyn got significantly better because of they brought in pieces that they absolutely needed.
Yeah, all depending on KD being healthy though. They were number one when he went out, and I'm gonna keep telling people that.
Before we get into more trades, of course, James Harden was already announced that he won't be playing at the All-Star game, and Jared Allen will be his replacement. And I'm on Twitter yesterday as it got announced, and I see I didn't even realize people wanted Pascal Siakam to be an All-Star this year, because when it originally came out, nobody said that Pascal was snubbed for an All-Star spot. But now Jared Allen make it, who is the best defensive player. I'm pretty sure I heard they were the number one defense in the league. I don't know if that's scoring wise, defensive rating, field goal percentage, or whatnot. But I don't think first and foremost, I don't necessarily think players are snubbed for the All-Star game, especially when it's something that's voted on and players are picked. Like, you just didn't make it. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like Jared Allen, and as you were saying, the Cavs had earned the right to 2 All-Stars over Toronto. They're in 2 different places in the standings. Both of their All-Stars are a big reason why they're in that spot in the standings. Cleveland being top 3 right now, Toronto being at the bottom of the playoffs. I think they're in 8th or 7th, 8th place right now. So, do you think Pascal was snubbed? I don't think he was snubbed. I think Jared Allen should have made it initially as far as All-Star game go.
Yeah, I don't think Pascal was snubbed. I think once you start getting this deep into the replacement players, first of all, the commissioner's picking it based off of votes also. So they think he's picking it randomly, but he's picking the next highest vote getter. So that means he got more votes than
right,
whether that's coaches or mix of the coaches or the fans, I don't know, but he's picking it off the next highest votes. But Pascal has had a good season, but he also had to ramp it up at one point, which is why Fred is an All-Star, not him, because Fred's been the one that's more consistent all year.
I think Pascal's averaging 22 over the season.
Yeah, he's averaging
25 since January 12th, I think.
Right, so he's had a good couple of weeks, about a month into the season. But Jared Allen has been who he's been the whole year. Cleveland's been consistent all year.
Right.
It just took everybody a while to take him seriously, which nobody blames anyone for wanting to see was his Cavs team really as good as they were. But Jared Allen has been a defensive force since day one. Right. And him making the All-Star team once over Pascal doesn't necessarily make him the better player.
That's right.
It just means you're having a better season at this point, and he's having a really great season. So I thought Jared Allen should, once it got into the picking the next reserves, if anybody else was going to get 2 All-Stars, I thought next in line would have been Cleveland. I saw somebody, it was probably just a Miami Heat fan page, saying they thought Tyler Hero could have got the spot, but Miami don't have 2 All-Stars.
No.
He is averaging 20 though.
And another thing I said that I definitely didn't agree with was, Jared Allen shouldn't make it because he can't create his own shot. Like, that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, don't got nothing to do with being an All-Star. You gotta respect that he should be a top 3 defensive player of the year candidate. And I mean, he has a solid stat line on the season. Also, I believe what is Jared Allen?
I think like 16 and 11. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like a block.
Yeah, he's 16 and 11 on the season, 66% from the field. That's an All-Star. Cleveland's 4th place. Really on the coattails of being, they're about 2 games out of first place.
All right.
So they're right there in the thick of it.
Nah, yeah, and what I want to say, the NBA did release their top 3 for Defense Player of the Year. It was Giannis, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Mikal Bridges. I think Jared Allen should be somewhere in the mix. Like, I think he should be in the top 3, honestly.
Yeah, he could have been in there. I'm surprised Mikal is in there. Shout out to him. It's hard for a wing player to get in that position. So shout out to Mikal Bridges.
No, for sure. But back to the trades, because there were more trades made it. The Serge Ibaka one. No, I don't even want to get into the Serge Ibaka one yet. I want to get, because I heard it, but I didn't realize it at the same time that Marvin Bagley got traded to Detroit. Mm-hmm. I don't even know who he got traded for, honestly. But not even to be on this one that long, but do you think this is a good place for Marvin Bagley to try to get a fresh start?
I mean, he's still young, so it's a young team that's looking for pieces. Maybe he can build a connection with Cade, and because Cade showing that he can score, but I think K's a pretty good passer. He can facilitate some things for him. And this is a good time for him to expand his game, get his mid-range jumper right, add that corner three, maybe work on his ball handling and stuff. So Detroit could work out for him, honestly. Like I said, he's still young, so this is his chance to show. Sacramento just wasn't a good situation for him.
Right, sure.
For him, it's just a matter of being healthy and being consistent. That's all it is. Healthy and consistent. I'm not even the biggest Marvin Bagley fan, but he's clearly got talent, and in the games where he shine, where he's get those 19 and 10, 11, it's just a matter of him being healthy and putting it together every night. So it could work. It's opportunity there in Detroit, and that's what you need the most.
Nah, for sure. But over to the Serge Ibaka trade to the Milwaukee Bucks. Who did Serge get traded for?
I don't even remember.
Like, players just get traded, right? Like, just take it, we'll give you whatever. But the Milwaukee Bucks have been without Brook Lopez for all of the year. They had DeMarcus Cousins, on a 10-day contract. They didn't bring him back. I think Serge Ibaka provides some of the things that Brook Lopez helped him with. Occasional rim protection. Serge Ibaka is definitely going to be a better rim protector, and some occasional outside shooting. Brook Lopez in that case is the better shooter, but I think it adds up as equal parts. Brook Lopez got 3-4 inches on him. That's really the big difference. But do you think Serge Ibaka helps Milwaukee get back to a championship? Because that's the only move they made. I know
that's the only one they made, and they expect to get Brook back. So having both of them would help. But I think he helps them because, obviously, he's going to bring the defense. He's always going to be a solid shot blocker. Mm-hmm. Whether obviously he's not what he used to be, but he's always going to be a solid shot blocker. But Serge, I always like Serge around because Serge is just a good basketball player overall. Honestly, like, he goes through those. He'll have those games where he's going to knock down a couple mid-ranges, his three is falling, and you look up and Serge got 12 points, 5-6 rebounds real quick. So you still see that in Serge from time to time. It's just for Serge, he's just at that point in his career where he's been in and out the last couple of years. So if they can keep him on the court, Serge definitely, I think he definitely helps them because they do expect to get Brook back, and I think that you're comfortable with Bobby because Bobby Portis is a really good player. He plays really good.
You want him coming off the bench, though.
Right. You want him coming off the bench, but you don't want him being your only big, even if he is starting. Like, all right, cool. I'm cool with Bobby starting at center for them, but I'm not cool with him being the only big that they got. I still think that they should have kept DeMarcus Cousins. They basically chose what's his name? Wes Matthews. They basically chose him over DeMarcus. I think they should have kept DeMarcus, but Serge works out for them also.
No, yeah, absolutely do. Like I said, I think it shores up their defense, which I know Milwaukee is really going to want to have on point going into the playoffs, going another championship run. The Boston Celtics were a part of the trade. And that trade came a week before the trade deadline, if I remember correctly. But basically, they swapped out Josh Richardson for Derek White from San Antonio. They still didn't get a point guard that they needed. They didn't necessarily get a big man. But do you think this helps Boston's guard wing rotations? Because now you do have another scorer outside of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Even if it's not going to be of that production, you can put him in the game and he going to knock down shots in his spot.
Yeah, Derek White isn't a point guard, but I really like them getting Derek White because he's actually a really good player. Like, I watched his first game with them, and he just played good basketball. Honestly,
sure.
Watching him, I saw him. Like I said, he's not a point guard, but I saw him actually set up more people than any other point guard they've had all year. Like, he's just making the right play. He's cutting, getting the ball in the middle, and making the extra pass and finding the open spot. And obviously, it looks good when his shot's falling. You're going to have those nights when it's not falling.
Right.
But even when his shot isn't falling, he's going to play defense. He's still going to try and make the right play. So, I think he works for them. And if worst case scenario came, if I would stick with, since you went that route, I would stick with Marcus Smart as starting point guard, but I definitely wouldn't be afraid to go through closing lineups with Derek White handling the ball.
That absolutely makes sense. Yeah. And of course,
he'll know to get the ball to Jason and Jaylen.
Right. And of course, Boston is on, I think, about 9, 10, 11 game win streak right now.
Yeah, they're in 6th place now. They didn't play in like last week.
Right. Everybody basically had this season as a watch for Boston. What do you like? Of course, this happens because it's a long season. We just now get to the All-Star break. Like I said, people had the Boston left for dead basically for the most part of the season. But what do you think it is that actually flipped the switch in Boston where they was like, all right, yo, let's get it together? Like,
I think for one, Boston, they at the end of the day they do have sort of a chemistry with their team. This core has kind of been together for a while, and the chemistry kicked in. And I just think overall they've gotten better play from their best two players. Honestly, even when it's been back and forth, where one might not be having the greatest game, but the other one is. But Jason Tatum and Jalen have really stepped up. Robert Williams has been solid all year. I really like Robert Williams. Sure. I want to give Pritchard some credit for coming to life this year, because I thought he left all his points in Portland. I had to say it. But he started playing better and at least just providing some offense for them. Right. So, and Boston was a solid team overall. And when you got two players, and Jason and Jalen, eventually they're gonna win some games for you. We've seen the big games that they've had. So. Right. I like them getting Daniel Tice back too, because he knows the offense. He knows his role. Like he plays well with them. So I like them. I don't think they ever should have traded him, honestly. So I like them going back to get him.
Oh, for sure.
They're going back to get all this. You're gonna get Al back. You're gonna get Tice back. They're gonna bring Terry Rozier back next year. That's why everybody keep wanting to bring Isaiah Thomas back. But he ain't coming back.
He ain't coming back, Boston. But yeah, Boston's definitely done a good job of not only getting better with the Derek White trade, but just playing better in general, which I know, like I said, they was fighting for their play-in lives. Now being in 6th place, if they can hold on to it, they'll be a playoff team for surely. And I know,
right? Yeah, they're in 6 right now.
And I know at the minimum, that's what Ime wanted in his first year, for them to be a playoff team. Like, you don't want to miss the playoffs your first year there when this team been a consistent playoff team.
Right. And Grant, I want to give Grant Williams some credit. He's played really well for them recently. Also, he's an important piece to what Boston does. I hate when they play him at center. I turned on the game at one point, and even though they were kicking Philly ass, it didn't matter. But he was guarding Joel Embiid at one point, and I was like, this is disgusting. Joel dunked on him, but that's the only good play they had.
We got news that the Lakers, if Tristan Thompson bought out a chance he could go there. I know. I wasn't saying it was good. Of course, every team and their mother
add to the circus
is vying for the service of Goran Dragic. And I know Tristan Thompson, he's still a serviceable rotational player. Like, I'm pretty sure he wants to be a starter. He's not a starter at this point.
I don't think he's there. Start.
Probably not. You never know.
I don't think he can.
But one team I think that should look at him, bringing him in, especially with the injuries to their roster and how they just need, especially big bodies right now. I think the Bulls should really look at bringing in Tristan Thompson, especially as a veteran. He's gonna go down there. He's gonna rebound for you. He's gonna be tough, even with being a tad bit shorter. He's gonna try to protect the rim for you. And I think you can play him and Vooch together, or you can play him by himself at center, depending on the lineup. Do you want that? You think?
Yeah, Tristan work in Chicago because he's always been a good offensive rebounder. He's gonna work hard on
rebounding. He is defensive rebounder,
basically. But he is gonna work hard rebounding. He's gonna try to provide some defense. Not that he's a shot blocker or nothing like that, but hitting his rotations, taking some picks and some charges and stuff like that. So,
sure.
Veteran player, can't discredit his championship. Being on those championship runs, I always think teams that are trying to win championships for the first time, it helps to have players that have won a championship on the roster. So I like him going to the Bulls. I can see why he would want to go to the Lakers. I don't see why the Lakers would want him necessarily. I mean, I don't think size is really their problem.
No, it's not.
I like the idea of Goran Dragic going there. I like more so the idea of Gary Harris, but if he actually gets bought out, I've been saying his name a lot. I don't know if he's actually getting bought out, but I saw people saying that since Tyreek Evans has been reinstated, they should look at Tyreek. I don't understand how Tyreek works there either.
None of these players. Gary Harris might help the Lakers.
Gary helps because he's going to provide some shooting. He's got size. He's not
any of these other.
Tyreek and Goran both handle the ball, so. Yeah. They need LeBron handling the ball, they need AD playing center, they need everybody else shooting.
Now that makes sense, and of course everybody, once Gordon got traded and it was made known that he was going to hit the buyout market, that he would probably be going to Dallas. But do you think them getting Spencer Dinwiddie and then how well Jalen Brunson has been playing this year with and without Luke in the lineup, you think they still want to go get Goran Dragic?
I think they still possibly would, but I think they would choose size over him because even though you have Dinwiddie, he's still gonna have those nights when he's not on, and even Dragic's gonna have those nights too. But Dinwiddie can also play off the ball, so I mean he's probably theoretically your backup point guard, but they still probably could kind of use a backup point guard. So, and that just give you extra insurance in case of injuries and stuff like that. So, but I don't think he's going to Dallas no more since they picked him up. I wouldn't be surprised if he still did, but I don't know where Dragic is going.
He should go to Minnesota.
He works in Minnesota, good backup for D'Angelo Russell, but he ain't going to Minnesota.
No, they ain't looking like a championship team, and I get it. If I was a veteran, I wouldn't necessarily want to go to the young team who's on the edge of making the playoffs. Like, I'm trying to go, like, advance in the playoffs.
And there's snow out there? No.
I mean, he from Slovenia?
He been playing in Miami the last couple of years. See, he never made it to Toronto.
I don't think he's never even played anywhere cold for real.
He never made it to Toronto.
He's in Phoenix.
He was in Houston.
He's never played anywhere cold.
Yeah.
So,
he ain't going to Minnesota.
He's going to Minnesota. But
he never made the trip to Toronto.
The one trade that happened last week.
You said where he's from. I was finna throw in a joke, Carmichael joke, but I'm gonna leave that.
Slovakia. But no, seriously though, a trade that happened last week. This was like the trade that set a lot of things off as far as trades go, in my opinion, and it had a lot of people debating was this actually a good trade or not. And of course, that was the Sacramento Kings, Indiana Pacers swapping.
Where you going with this one?
Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday all went to Sacramento for Tristan Thompson, Buddy Hield, and Tyrese Halliburton. And everybody's saying that Sacramento got fleeced, and what is Sacramento doing? This is Sacramento being Sacramento because they traded the young 21?
Yeah.
The 21-year-old point guard, Tyrese Halliburton, who showed great potential as far as being a playmaker and knocking down shots. But as me and you were saying when it happened, this is kind of Sacramento kind of showing, all right, this is what we want to build for. Like, at the end of the day, Domantas Sabonis is a two-time All-Star at age 25. De'Aaron Fox at 24 is basically a 24-6 player at this moment. Rashawn Holmes is a good starting center. I don't know if you keep him or not, but he's a good start. He's a quality starting center. They really like Davion Mitchell, especially his defensive capabilities. Maybe he develops a 3-point shot, or just more offense in general as his career goes by. Harrison Barnes probably get flipped. I know a lot of people thought he was gonna get traded during the season. He probably get flipped, but until then, you got him, and they're right there as far as the play-in game go. Was this probably the first smart thing Sacramento has done since they've drafted De'Aaron Fox?
Whether it was smart or not, this was the first time they made a firm decision on where they're going, which is they're choosing a 25, because they had like Sabonis is 28. They chose a 25-year-old two-time All-Star, your 23-year-old borderline All-Star. Maybe you don't make the play-in this year, but we're right there already. And now we start working towards that next year. And now next year we're talking 7 seed, 8 seed. That's what we're trying to get for sure.
Right.
And I don't blame them for making the decision to do that. I mean, they've been bad for years. They've been drafting at the top of the draft for years. They got Marvin Bagley with the number 2 pick. Halliburton was a top 10 pick. Maybe they decided to trade for some winning. And then now you get them, and I don't know who else you put. I mean, you still got Harrison Barnes, who I really like. Like you said, I don't know if you trade Rashawn Holmes or not, but you going with that as your base,
right?
And you build off of that. I can't be mad at them for making the decision to not just keep trying to develop players. Not develop players, because these are still young players, but you can't always just trade for an all-star, and they got a point guard, and I think they also chose De'Aaron Fox over Halliburton. And
that's exactly what they did. They traded for an all-star, like you said. That doesn't... Even when you know a player had all-star potential, you made that trade for him. Sometimes that don't happen. We've seen Domantas Sabonis go to Indiana and be their main low post. Not necessarily their main low post option, but just their main scoring option in general. And he's been an all-star there. Like, especially, and Indiana was pretty decent record-wise. Like, they made a play-in last year, they made the playoffs. But I don't think this was a wrong move for Sacramento. Like, I think it builds something. It shows to your point that you always like to make, it shows your players like De'Aaron Fox, like, we gonna try to get players around you that not necessarily have to get better, but they're already on a level where they can help make the team better right now. And I think that's what this move was, honestly. Like, we can improve. We can improve now. We don't have to keep drafting players. We don't have to trade our best player, who's De'Aaron Fox, so we can get more young players and more assets and start the development process all over again. Like, I think everybody can say that they wasted every part of Boogie's career there, and this is with Boogie being an All-Star a couple times, being All-NBA a couple times, but they never drafted him a point guard. The only way they drafted him, to my recollection is Ben McLemore, and we see how that turned out. But this is the first time they're like, okay, we have this piece already. Let's find a complementary piece. And I think the way De'Aaron Fox plays basketball and the way Domantas Sabonis plays is going to be very complementary towards each other. A lot of pick and pop, pick and roll, high elbow stuff, handoffs. Like, Domantas Sabonis isn't a bad shooter from the three-point line either. So I think it works. Like, whatever the roster looks like after free agency during the summer is a whole nother thing. But I think right now, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis is a good starting point.
Yeah, you got two players, both 25 and under. De'Aaron's 23, Domantas 25. So I'm not mad at them for saying this is the way we're gonna go. Especially, I think they chose, like I said, De'Aaron and Davion to be more part of that future. Davion Brain's winning pedigree. I know he's just a rookie, but just coming off of winning a championship in college. We saw him play live, and I've always liked him, but I really like watching him play when we watched him live. So a good move for Sacramento. We'll see what they can put around him. They still gonna need some shooting. I think they should keep Harrison Barnes. His deal, I don't know what his deal is. I'm bringing up his deal, but if you can keep him on a good deal, Harrison is a good player. He'll give you 25 one night and dunk on you if you think if you play with him. So
5 threes, another
play
night.
Defense and stuff like that. So it's like they're trying to have some life. They got to figure out what they're gonna do with the coach. I know Gentry's the interim coach. But hire a head coach that has offense in mind of what he wants to do with De'Aaron and Sabonis. I think that would be like key to my next coach is how are you gonna make those two players all-stars?
Oh, for sure. And speaking of the other side of the trade, the Indiana Pacers, like I said, they picked up Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson, who they're probably getting ready to buy out, and Tyrese Halliburton. And of course, it was reported earlier in the season that Indiana was ready to rebuild. And that was noted by how they said they was ready to trade a lot of their important pieces, Karis LeVert, Miles Turner, and Sabonis. Karis LeVert and Sabonis both got traded. What do you think Indiana go from here? Because it's clear it's not a full rebuild because you have a young player to start with, Tyrese Halliburton. Where does Indiana go from here?
I mean, for Indiana, it's a good... So, Indiana already wanted to get younger anyway. I mean, Sabonis is young, but they wanted to get younger. So, this is a way of them kind of resetting within rebuilding. Because with Halliburton, I don't think they're going to be bad, but I don't think they're not good now anyway. But you already got that he's a piece, so they're not looking for a point guard in this upcoming draft. I know they like Chris Duarte, so you got some wings. Some have said that this is their way of kind of choosing Miles Turner over Sabonis. Also, they said that because obviously they were kind of shopping Miles Turner as well, but they brought Halliburton in with the mindset that they could play together. They said that Miles Turner was excited for him to come there actually. You get a young point guard that a lot of people's really high on. I think he's a really good player. I think he has a clean up, being able to consistently, because he shoots high percentages, but I've seen him, like when he shoots high percentages because he makes a shot when he gets it off. I've seen times when he's not able to get his shot off. But he's a good building block. I think he, for them next year, is in the most improved player conversation. That's what you're hoping for.
That's absolutely what you're hoping for. Like I said, for the most part, that was all the trades. Of course, there was the Cam Reddish for Kevin Knox trade, which it sounds as crazy as it sounds because Kevin Knox hasn't necessarily played any minutes for the Hawks. Like, that was a better trade for the Hawks than it was for the Knicks because they're still bad, and Cam Reddish don't necessarily play with 5 minutes a game.
Knicks Twitter said that they fleeced the Hawks.
Right. They said and it's funny because, of course, everybody's getting no tips about play young players. And while I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment, I also go back to think, well, what are the, because, people always say, well, it's on the coach and it's on the team and the organization to develop these players. But I always go back to, what are these players doing on their off day? Not necessarily off days, but when they're by themselves, are they working out as hard as they say they are? Like, are they developing their games on their own as well? And I think the Knicks have a lot of good young. I do. I think the Knicks have a lot of good young prospects between Quentin Grimes, R.J. Barrett in his third year, Cam Reddish at some point. He's only in his third year. I'm not as high on a man quickly as most people, but he's a good rotational piece. I like Mitch Robinson when he's not hurt. Also another thin man. I don't know too much about Deuce or the other player they drafted this year because they really haven't played that much. But I don't think Tibbs is wrong in his thinking of these are the players who I think are going to help us make the playoffs, and these are our best players, and this is my rotation. Because at the end of the day, I know people talk about the Derrick Rose thing, how he got hurt and how he got fired from this place and that place for, coaching the way he coaches. But it's realistically like Chicago is just getting back to that place.
Derrick Rose got hurt before he could even run his body into the ground. Honestly, only person that got ran into the ground, truthfully, was Luol Deng.
Yeah, because even the Jimmy Butler thing, I remember the whole thing. I don't even think people actually remember why Tibbs got fired from Chicago. And I'm saying allegedly because I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't have any inside information. But it was reported that Jimmy Butler went to the front office because that was a crazy season anyway with Rondo and Dwayne Wade. But, of course, it was Jimmy Butler went to the front office about how Tibbs was playing and practicing them too hard. So Tibbs get fired and go to Minnesota. Chicago hires Tim Floyd. And then what does Jimmy Butler complain about with Tim Floyd? We're not working and practicing hard enough. And it's like, I don't blame for Tibbs for being how he is because at the end of the day, he's holding his team accountable. If y'all are the pieces I have, outside of Kemba Walker, who most nights doesn't look good, what player should he actually take out of his rotation for a young player? Let's just go there, honestly. Like, what player, Evan Fournier, Julius Randle, the Kemba Walker, Taj Gibson.
I think they wanted to take out Evan Fournier because he's hot and cold or whatever, but Tibbs is an old school coach where you earn your minutes by being productive while you out there, and he's gave Cam more minutes recently. But I don't know what they expected to happen when you traded a player that's not playing at all, and you trade him for a player that now need to find minutes for. I mean, that's not the ideal situation. It worked out for the Hawks because the Hawks were trying to solidify roles. So one less person to feed on this team that's full of weapons. Everybody has said all year how versatile the team is, how deep the team is. Now you got one less player. More people's roles are solidified, especially or whatever. But adding to the Knicks, now was like, now I got to find minutes for this player or whatever. So, but I think in the end, he's going to work out there. He's going to earn minutes for Tibbs because he plays defense and he cuts. So he just plays hard overall. I think he'll mind him or Jimmy Butler in that sense. But Tibbs is an old school coach where you develop through trying to compete to win. And that's how you take minutes away from. I mean, they finished in home court last year. They didn't expect to take this year, and as long as they have an opportunity to make the play in, he's gonna try to make the play in game, which they're like a game out of it, 2 games out of the play in. So he's gonna try to make the play in. That's just his coaching style.
And I don't think there's nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people are just ready to get away from some of the older coaches and older way of thinking. I don't think there's nothing wrong with a coach, especially a coach that knows what it takes to only get to the playoffs, but be a number 1 seed in the playoffs. Also win a championship. I think people forgot he was on that Doc Rivers staff in Boston that won that championship in 2008 against the Lakers.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's just experimenting and trying something, or he's been middle of the road coach. He's been a really good coach for the most part, as an assistant or as a head coach. So I don't necessarily see I'm not a Knicks fan, so I don't see what they see, but I also think some of the stuff they see is just wrong as well, because every fan base knows better than the front office, right?
Right.
So before we get out of here, I want to bring up All-Star break because we are closing in on that. I ain't finna talk about the Rising Star Challenge because they need to get rid of it. They don't need to get rid of it. They need to reformat it, so I don't even want to bring any attention to it. The 3-point shootout should be interesting. The dunk contest will probably be better than people expect it to be. But the All-Star game is always the main attraction. I don't want to speak on the celebrity game because that's also whack. They don't even be really choosing real basketball players no more. Like, half them celebrities can't play for real. But the All-Star game should be interesting. We got some first-timers. We got some long-timers. Who do you think is going to have the best game? Like, that might not necessarily, there's always that one player that has a really good game, and you say, oh, yeah, he's going to be the MVP, but he never wins it. Who do you think is going to have that game?
I think the betting favorite for most people is probably Ja Morant because he's made for the All-Star game.
Yep.
I can see Ja having a big game, getting some good dunks. He got those fresh young legs, so he's going to be out there running. He's going to be playing hard. Not hard for real, but he's going to be playing hard. He's going to be running up and down, trying to get some highlight dunks. So I can see Ja having a standout game. I can also see not maybe a whole game, but I can see like LaMelo having some good moments because he's an all-star type player. I can see him pulling up from, he got to pull out his old high school thing where he pointed at the line.
There you go, that all-star game?
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be a cool moment to see him do it. I didn't like when he did it in high school. I still don't like that he did it. But in an all-star game, I would like to see him do it.
No, for sure. Who you think is gonna win the MVP? I know how they do the MVP now is different. Been different over the last couple of years. But who do you think is gonna win the MVP? You think LeBron ties Kobe this year?
I think so. That's who I said was gonna get it because the game's in Cleveland, and even though I don't feel like LeBron has made it a big deal or whatever that is in Cleveland, but the fact that it's in Cleveland, the chance to tie Kobe for the most, I think LeBron gets it. And I've been 2 for 2 on the All-Star MVP the last 2 years since they changed it to the Kobe. I said Kawhi and then Giannis last year, so we'll see if I can go 3 in a row. Yeah, I got LeBron, though. I said LeBron from the start, honestly. I said LeBron weeks ago just because the game in Cleveland. So this is probably not his last All-Star game, but I feel like until his last All-Star game where he probably goes out and try to have his Jordan moment of trying to win it. I think this is his last big game where he really cared about it.
No,
I really don't know if he cares about it this year, but being in Cleveland, I think he cares.
No, he gotta win. Got to rep for the hometown because he is from Akron, Ohio, a little bit off Cleveland. But like I said,
Dan Gilbert gonna tell them when they win the championship.
That's a conversation for another day. Yeah. But like I say, trade deadline went by smooth sailing. Truthfully, nothing crazy happened. There was some good trades. There was some why not make a move teams, like I said in the opening. But all in all, I think every team that made a trade got what they wanted, got rid of what they wanted to get rid of. We didn't see any teams trade to tank this year. Like every team that made a trade was trying to get better, at least for this season, if not next season as well. But other than that, you got anything else?
Nah, that's all I got for today. Just as always, appreciate the listeners. You can find us anywhere podcasts are available. Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, all those cool places. You can catch us every Wednesday for our live show on the Off the Ball Network's Facebook page, our Hoopers YouTube page, and on the Hoopers Twitter page. And just make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. Go to the YouTube, subscribe, comment on some stuff. Just search the Hoopers Pod. That's all I got.
All right, that being said, I'm John W.
Fresh X.
And we are the Hoopers.